The discipline of the stop rule is not born from theory, nor from elegant principles spoken in lecture halls. It comes from the scars of ruin, from the silent stares at empty accounts, and from the bitter taste of knowing that survival was sacrificed on the altar of stubbornness. A trader learns quickly, or not at all, that the market does not negotiate. It does not sympathize with the man who begs for one more day, one more rally, one more chance to be right. The market has no memory, no mercy, and no hesitation against such a force. There is only one shield, the unwavering application of the stop rule. The stop rule is the line drawn in advance, before the fever of trading clouds the judgment. It is the number that says, beyond this, I will not go. Beyond this, I am no longer defending my capital. I am surrendering it. A trader who refuses to draw that line, or worse, who moves it in the heat of the moment, is not protecting his fortune. He is gambling with his life's blood. The market waits for such men. It has all the patience in the world, and it will strip them bare. Consider the mind of a trader when the tape turns against him. At first, the loss seems small, manageable, a passing shadow. He tells himself, it will turn back. It always does. That voice is not discipline. That is hope, masquerading as strategy. Hope is poison. Hope grows louder as the loss grows larger, until the trader becomes deaf to reason. By then, the stop that should have been executed in seconds has dissolved into hours, days, sometimes weeks of agony. The account shrinks, the confidence shatters, and the man is left with nothing but excuses. The stop rule is not there to make the trader comfortable. It is there to make him survive. A trader must accept that most trades will not be winners. The law of averages, the rhythm of the market, dictates that losses are part of the game. But those losses must be controlled, contained, kept so small that even a series of them cannot sink the ship. Without the stop rule, the ship is already doomed, because no matter how brilliant the navigation, the storm eventually comes. It is not the storm that decides who survives. It is the captain's willingness to cut the sails before they tear to shreds. The hardest part of discipline is not knowing what to do. It is doing it. A man can write in his book, I will cut my losses at 2 points. He can repeat it to himself each morning. But when the market opens, and the price begins to slip, and the blood quickens in his veins, he hears another voice. That voice whispers, give it more room. It's only temporary. If the trader listens, he has already lost because he has broken his own law. And once a rule is broken, it is no longer a rule. It becomes a suggestion, and suggestions are ignored when fear and greed are in command. To master the stop rule, a trader must harden himself to the cries of his own emotions. He must treat the stop as if it were not his decision at all, but a command from a higher authority. There is no debate, no hesitation, no delay. The stop is executed automatically, like the pull of a trigger in battle when the enemy crosses the line. This is why the great traders do not think of stops as choices. They think of them as obligations. A stop is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration of strength, the strength to survive when others perish. The stop rule also serves another purpose, one more subtle but no less vital. It frees the trader's mind. Without the certainty of a stop, each tick downward is a dagger of doubt. The trader cannot think clearly. He cannot plan, cannot read the tape, cannot act with precision, because he is shackled to a bleeding position. But when the stop is in place, the trader knows that his worst outcome is defined. He can look at the market with calm eyes, ready to strike again when the next true opportunity appears. The stop is not only protection for capital, it is protection for clarity. Many men scoff at stops, they say. I trust my judgment. I know the market will return. They believe stops are for the weak, for those without conviction. Yet these are the men most often carried out when the market decides otherwise. Conviction without discipline is suicide. The market rewards only those who respect its danger, who enter every trade with the understanding that they might be wrong. And when they are wrong, they leave quickly, without hesitation. For them, the stop is not an admission of failure. It is the price of survival. the cost of playing another day. The discipline of the stop rule is the dividing line between speculation and destruction. Without it, a trader is at the mercy of chance, and chance will eventually turn against him. With it, he transforms the game. Losses become lessons, not disasters. Mistakes become temporary setbacks, not fatal wounds. The stop rule allows the trader to face the market day after day, storm after storm, without fear of annihilation. And in the end, survival is the true measure of success, for no man can win tomorrow if he has lost everything today. The market is eternal, but the trader is not. Each man has only so much capital, only so much time, only so much nerve. The discipline of the stop rule acknowledges this truth. It is the acknowledgement that no one trade, no one idea, no one moment is worth risking total collapse. The trader who lives by the stop rule will live to see another market, another wave. And the trader who defies it will someday look back on the wreckage and realize that the stop rule was never his enemy. It was the friend he ignored, the lifeline he refused, the salvation he scorned, and by then it will be too late. In the market, the deadliest enemy is not the sudden collapse of prices, nor the treachery of false rallies, nor even the whisper of panic spreading across the trading floor. The true enemy is the trader's own pride. Pride tells a man he cannot be wrong, that the market must eventually bend to his vision. Pride convinces him that holding on is courage, that refusing to yield is strength. But in truth, pride is the blindfold placed across his eyes while the market reaches into his pockets and strips him of every dollar he owns. A trader who values his pride over his capital will soon have neither. The market has always been merciless to those who confuse stubbornness with discipline. Capital is the trader's ammunition, his lifeblood, the very air he breathes in the game. Without it, there is no second chance, no opportunity to recover, no tomorrow. A man with capital still has a future, even if he has just been beaten today. A man without capital is finished, regardless of how brilliant his theories may sound or how passionately he insists he is right. Survival depends not on being right, but on having the resources to fight another day. Ego whispers dangerous lies. It tells the trader that cutting a loss is weakness, that stepping aside is cowardice. It urges him to hold longer, to prove himself correct, to teach the market a lesson. But the market does not learn. It does not feel shame. And it does not care who is right. It exists only to move, and those movements crush the egos of men who mistake their opinions for truth. Every trader who has lasted long enough has buried countless positions that once felt certain. They survived not because they were always correct, but because they knew that protecting their capital was more important than defending their pride. The trader who allows his ego to dominate will always find ways to rationalize staying in a losing position. He will tell himself that the stock is undervalued, that temporary forces are distorting the price, that he knows something others do not. He will search for news, for rumors, for anything that justifies his refusal to accept a loss. In that search, he is no longer trading, he is praying, and the market punishes prayer just as surely as it punishes arrogance. By the time the truth is undeniable, by the time the position has bled him dry, it is too late. The ego that would not admit defeat has condemned him to ruin. Capital preservation is not glamorous. It is not the story men like to tell in clubs or boast about in letters. No one brags of the losses they avoided, of the times they walked away, of the dollars they refused to risk. The stories are always of victories, of bold calls, of daring bets that paid off in spectacular fashion. But behind those victories lies an invisible foundation, the discipline to preserve capital. The trader who fails to protect his capital will have no victories to recount, because he will no longer be in the game. There is a subtle cruelty in how ego works against a trader. When he is wrong, it urges him to stay. When he is right, it urges him to overstay. The first destroys his capital through losses. The second destroys his capital through greed, as he refuses to take profits until the market has stolen them back. In both cases, ego blinds him to the reality that capital is the only measure that matters, whether defending it in loss or safeguarding it in gain. The preservation of capital must outweigh the satisfaction of proving oneself correct. The trader who has mastered this lesson knows that every trade begins with a single question. How much can I afford to lose here? Not how much can I make, not how certain am I, not how loudly my pride demands to be right. Only this: if I am wrong, what portion of my capital will be sacrificed? And can I live to trade again tomorrow? If the answer endangers his survival, he does not enter. He may appear cautious to others, but in truth, he is protecting his future. He understands that opportunities are infinite, but capital is finite. He treats it as a treasure, not as a toy for his ego's amusement. The man who places ego above capital often experiences a strange paradox. He clings to positions because he cannot stand the thought of admitting defeat. He fears that taking a loss will wound his pride. Yet by refusing to take the small loss, he guarantees the larger one. The very thing he fears, humiliation, arrives with far greater force when the market strips him of everything. The man who admits defeat quickly, preserving his capital, may feel the sting of temporary shame, but it fades as soon as the next trade begins. The man who refuses to admit defeat is not merely shamed. He is destroyed. The preservation of capital requires humility, and humility is rare in this game. Humility means acknowledging that the market is greater than the individual, that no one can bend it to his will. That being wrong is inevitable and frequent. Humility means taking small losses without protest, because those losses are the cost of survival. The humble trader accepts that he is not in control of the outcome. What he controls is only his exposure, his discipline, his willingness to protect what he has earned. In the end, the market separates men not by intelligence or daring, but by respect for capital. Many brilliant minds have been broken because they valued their ideas more than their money. Many bold traders have been swept aside because they valued the thrill of being right more than the safety of being liquid. The survivors are those who understand that the ego must bow before the balance sheet, that pride cannot pay the margin call, that stubbornness does not refill an empty account. They are the ones who keep their powder dry, who step aside when the battle turns, who walk away when the tide shifts, because they know the war is not won in a single fight. The preservation of capital over ego is the iron law of speculation. A trader may be clever, a trader may be daring, a trader may even be brilliant, but if he cannot protect his capital, if he cannot suppress his ego long enough to survive the storm, then all his talent will vanish with his fortune. The trader who endures, who lives to fight again, is the one who remembers that capital is everything. Pride can be rebuilt in whispers and boasts, but once capital is gone, the game is over, and there are no more chances to play. Again, collapse does not begin with a great crash, though that is how the story is always told afterward. Men speak of the one day when the market turned against them, of the single moment when everything was lost, but that is not the truth. Collapse begins in silence. It begins with the faintest whisper of weakness, with a small loss brushed aside, with a warning that seemed too trivial to respect. The abyss never opens in an instant. It is carved by hesitation, by excuses, by the arrogance of thinking that danger can be delayed until tomorrow. The market punishes not the man who makes a mistake, but the man who refuses to recognize it. A single wrong trade cut swiftly is nothing more than a lesson. But that same trade, left to fester, grows into a wound that spreads through every part of the account. It begins with the thought, "It will turn back soon." That thought is the seed of destruction. It is watered each day the trader delays action, and it grows into a monstrous vine that wraps itself around every decision he makes. Soon he cannot see the market clearly, because every tick is filtered through the desperate need to be proven right. The abyss widens, and he does not even realize he is already falling. To learn from the abyss, a trader must first face its reality. The abyss is not a figure of speech. It is the account drained of capital, the mind haunted by sleepless nights, the silence of the ticker when the trader has been wiped out and can no longer play the game. It is the humiliation of standing outside the arena, knowing that opportunity will continue to parade across the tape for others, but not for him. The abyss is final, and it has swallowed more men than history bothers to remember. Those who forget this are the ones most at risk of joining them. The lesson lies in the recognition that collapse is built from small beginnings. No man falls because of the market alone. He falls because he ignored the first slip, because he believed he could recover without consequence, because he thought himself stronger than the laws of risk. The abyss teaches that there is no mercy in waiting, no safety in denial. Each moment of hesitation feeds the fall, until the trader is not simply losing money. He is losing the ability to act. By the time he finally admits the truth, he is paralyzed. His judgment has been eroded by fear, his confidence broken by repeated failure to enforce discipline. The abyss does not just consume his capital, it consumes his will. And yet, within the abyss lies the only true education the market can give. Books cannot teach it, words cannot capture it. Only the experience of staring into ruin, of seeing the edge beneath one's feet, can brand the lesson into the mind. The trader who survives the brink, who pulls himself back by the last fragment of discipline, never forgets. He learns that collapse is not one great event, but the sum of countless ignored warnings. He learns to listen to those warnings, to respect the faint signals of danger, to act before the fall becomes irreversible. There is a paradox here. The abyss destroys those who enter blindly, but it strengthens those who peer into it and step back in time. A trader who has never faced the possibility of ruin often carries himself with reckless confidence. He believes his system is unbreakable, his instinct infallible, his judgment above error. This confidence is fragile, for it has never been tested by true danger. But the trader who has stared into the abyss and felt its pull, who has seen how close he came to losing everything, carries a different kind of confidence. His is not the shallow belief that he cannot fail, but the hard-earned certainty that he knows how to survive. Learning from the abyss also means accepting that the market's cruelty is impartial. It does not matter how experienced a trader is, how many victories he has accumulated, how great his fortune has grown. The abyss waits for all, and it claims even the most seasoned if they forget their rules. Some of the greatest fortunes ever built were lost because the men who built them believed they were too clever, too strong, too invincible to fall. They dismissed the early signs of danger. They ignored the voice of caution, and they assumed that past success would shield them from future ruin. The abyss took them just the same, for it respects no man's history. The trader who truly learns this lesson changes his relationship with risk. He no longer asks, "How much can I make?" but instead, "How much can I endure if I am wrong?" He does not laugh at small losses, nor dismiss them as meaningless. He understands that they are the first stones tumbling from the cliff, the first cracks in the wall. He acts quickly, not because the loss itself threatens him, but because he knows what it can become if left unchecked. Each small loss closed is a bridge built away from the abyss, a step back from the edge. But learning from the abyss requires more than technical adjustments. It requires reshaping the mind. The abyss is not just a financial reality, it is a psychological one. When losses mount, the mind begins to fracture. Fear and hope wage war within the trader's thoughts, clouding every decision. The abyss teaches that survival depends on clarity, on stripping away the illusions of ego and desire, on seeing the market for what it is rather than what one wishes it to be. To learn from the abyss is to accept that the market is never wrong. Only the trader is. There is a strange power in this lesson. A trader who has internalized it no longer trembles at the thought of being wrong. Being wrong is inevitable. The only danger lies in refusing to act when wrong. Such a trader cuts quickly, moves on swiftly, and does not carry the burden of failure into the next battle. He knows that the abyss is always present, always waiting. But he also knows that it can be kept at bay through discipline. He respects it, fears it, and because of that fear, he survives. The abyss is the final teacher, the last frontier of knowledge and speculation. It cannot be ignored, it cannot be denied, and it cannot be conquered. It can only be understood, and those who understand it know that their survival does not depend on brilliance or courage or luck. It depends on recognizing the first steps toward collapse and refusing to take them. It depends on seeing the faint shadow of the abyss and turning back before the darkness swallows everything. Only then can a trader endure in a game where survival itself is victory, and victory is reserved for those who have learned what the abyss truly means. A rule written in a notebook is only ink on paper. A rule spoken aloud is only sound in the air. A rule thought in the mind is only a whisper that can be drowned out when the pressure rises. For a rule to matter, it must be lived until it is no longer a rule at all, but a reflex. A habit so ingrained that it operates without hesitation. In the market, hesitation is fatal. A trader who pauses to debate whether to obey his rule has already given the market the opening it needs to punish him. The difference between survival and ruin often lies in whether the rule is merely known or deeply embedded in the trader's instincts. The market has a cruel way of exposing those who confuse knowledge with discipline. A man may study for years, may memorize every principle, may repeat them to others with confidence. And yet when his own money is at stake, the rules dissolve. He tells himself that this situation is different, that this time he can bend the law he swore to uphold. But the market does not care about his exceptions. It does not recognize special circumstances. It sees only weakness, and it exploits it with merciless efficiency. The man who treats his rules as optional finds that the market enforces its own rules. And those rules are far more costly. To transform a rule into habit requires repetition under fire. It is not in quiet study nor in calm reflection that discipline is forged. It is in the heat of trading, when the ticker moves too quickly, when the heart races, when fear or greed threatens to take control. In those moments, the trader must act as his rules dictate, even if every fiber of his being screams against it. He must cut the loss, even when pride urges him to hold. He must sit still, even when impatience tempts him to act. He must wait for the setup, even when boredom whispers that opportunity will never come again. Each time he obeys, the rule sinks deeper into his being, until eventually the action becomes automatic. There is no other way to achieve mastery. Habits are not chosen once. They are chosen 1,000 times. Each decision is a brick in the wall, and the wall must be built strong enough to withstand the storm. Without this wall, a trader is exposed, and the first great gust of volatility will knock him flat. With it, he stands firm, not because he is unshakable, but because his discipline has been drilled into him so completely that he does not need to think. He reacts, he executes, he survives. The danger lies in believing that willpower alone will suffice. Willpower is strong in the morning, weak in the afternoon, gone by the evening. It rises with mood, falters with fatigue, bends under pressure. A trader cannot rely on willpower to enforce his rules, because the market will strike at the very moments when willpower is weakest. Instead, he must rely on habit, and habit is stronger than mood, stronger than fatigue, stronger even than fear. A man may be exhausted, discouraged, or enraged, but if the habit is truly built, he will still follow it, just as a soldier still drills his formations even when his body aches. The process of turning rules into habit is slow, painful, and humbling. A trader will stumble often. He will break his own laws, suffer the consequences, and vow never to do so again. Many will quit in frustration, unable to endure the cycle of failure. But those who persist find that each failure carries a lesson. Each lapse strengthens the memory. Each mistake deepens the scar. Over time, the scars themselves become reminders, and the trader no longer needs to force obedience. He obeys naturally, as if the pain of past disobedience is branded into his hands and eyes. He touches the fire once, twice, perhaps a dozen times, but eventually he learns to pull away without thought. The importance of habit extends beyond cutting losses or taking profits. It governs every aspect of trading. The habit of patience, to wait for the right conditions. The habit of caution, to limit exposure. The habit of silence, to ignore the noise of others. The habit of review, to study each trade after the fact and learn from it. Each of these is a rule, and each must become a habit if the trader is to survive long enough to prosper. The man who relies on occasional bursts of discipline may succeed for a time, but the market will eventually catch him in a moment of weakness. The man who has built discipline into habit is never defenseless, because he carries his rules within him wherever he goes. What makes this transformation so difficult is that habits are invisible until tested. A trader may believe he has mastered discipline, but when the market turns suddenly and violently, the truth is revealed. If he obeys his rule without thought, then he has built the habit. If he hesitates, if he debates, if he bargains with himself, then the habit is not yet formed. The market exposes the truth of every man's preparation. It shows him not who he wishes to be, but who he truly is. The wise trader accepts this exposure as feedback, as proof of where more work is needed, rather than as humiliation. There is also the temptation to relax once habits are built, to grow complacent, to assume that discipline is permanent, but habits can be weakened if neglected. A trader who allows himself to make exceptions, who convinces himself that one small breach will not matter, begins to erode the very foundation he worked so hard to build. Before long, he is back to relying on willpower. And willpower alone cannot save him. The cultivation of habit is never finished. It must be maintained every day, reinforced with every trade, protected as fiercely as capital itself. Ultimately, the difference between those who endure and those who collapse is not intelligence, not courage, not even luck. It is the presence of habits strong enough to withstand the chaos of the market. The market does not reward knowledge alone. It rewards the ability to act correctly under pressure. And correct action under pressure does not come from thinking. It comes from habit. The trader who turns his rules into habits becomes like a machine in the heat of battle, efficient, relentless, immune to the noise that destroys others. He does not waste time questioning himself. He acts. And because he acts according to rules proven by experience, he endures where others fail. To turn rules into habit is to armor oneself against the market's endless assault. It is to build a fortress within, one that no spike of volatility, no wave of fear, no surge of greed can breach. Without this fortress, a trader is exposed, vulnerable to every whim of emotion. With it, he can face the market with steady hands and clear eyes, ready not only to survive, but to thrive. For in speculation, as in life, it is not the man who knows what is right who endures, but the man who does it instinctively every time. Without question, the market does not forgive. That is the first truth. A trader must learn, though it is often the last one he accepts. Every hesitation, every lapse of discipline, every indulgence of hope over reason is punished with precision. The punishment may not come instantly, which is why so many ignore the warning, but it always comes. The market does not care about intent, effort, or excuses. It cares only about results, and those results are written in cold numbers that cannot be argued with. The trader who forgets this finds himself learning the lesson in the only way the market teaches, through loss. The ruthless reminder is that risk rules are not suggestions or guidelines. They are laws, and unlike the laws of men, these laws cannot be bent, delayed, or ignored without consequence. A trader who runs a red light on the street might get away with it 10 times before he is caught. A trader who runs a red light in the market might get away with it for months, even years. But when the reckoning comes, it is devastating. The market will eventually collect what it is owed, with interest, and the debt is always greater than the trader imagined. Every trader begins with the illusion that he can outwit this law. He sees others breaking their rules and prospering. He watches rallies that seem to vindicate recklessness. And he tells himself he too can escape the consequences. But the market is patient. It allows the illusion to grow. It allows the ego to swell. It allows the false confidence to harden into habit. And then, in one swift movement, it strips everything away. The reminder is brutal because it is designed not merely to correct, but to destroy. It ensures that only those who respect its power remain to play again. The ruthless reminder is also impartial. The market does not distinguish between the novice with his first $1,000 and the seasoned operator with $1 million at stake. It does not reward past success, nor does it pity past failure. It acts according to its own rhythm. And anyone who stands in defiance of that rhythm is punished. Many great fortunes have been lost, not because the men who held them lacked intelligence or daring, but because they forgot the simple truth that rules exist to preserve survival. They believed their experience exempted them, that their wealth insulated them, that their judgment was above error. The market reminded them otherwise. This reminder is not always financial. It is psychological, emotional, and spiritual. A man who breaks his own rules may keep his money for a time, but he loses something far more valuable: trust in himself. The next time he faces a critical decision, he remembers that he has already betrayed his discipline once. Doubt creeps in. Fear grows stronger. Confidence weakens. The trader begins to second guess, to hesitate, to overthink. Even if his account remains intact, his edge is gone. The market has a way of hollowing out the inside of a man before taking the rest, leaving him paralyzed long before he is ruined. The purpose of risk rules is not comfort. They are not designed to make a trader feel good, to reassure him when the tape turns against him, to soothe his pride when he is wrong. They are designed for one thing: survival. Survival has no beauty, no glamour, no glory. It is simple, cold, and unrelenting. Risk rules are the shield that allows a trader to endure the market's blows, and the market constantly reminds those who ignore them what happens when the shield is lowered. The reminder is ruthless because the game itself is ruthless. It has no sympathy for the man who lacked discipline. Consider the countless traders who have ignored this reminder and disappeared without a trace. For every name remembered in financial history, there are 100 who are forgotten, their fortunes gone, their stories untold, their lessons never passed on. They ignored the rules because they believed the market would spare them. But the market spares no one. It does not matter if the mistake is small or great. Once a trader disregards the laws of risk, he has already invited the market to finish him. Sometimes the end is quick, sometimes it is slow, but it is always certain. What separates the survivor from the casualty is not intelligence, not daring, not even vision. It is the willingness to respect the ruthless reminder. The survivor understands that the rules are not optional, that they are not negotiable, that they cannot be bent without consequence. He treats each breach as if it were a death sentence, because in time it will be. This respect is what allows him to endure losses without despair, to take profits without greed, to step aside without shame. He knows the market's memory is long, and he refuses to give it reason to turn against him. The ruthless reminder also shapes character. A trader who accepts it becomes disciplined not only in trading but in life. He learns that actions have consequences, that discipline is freedom, that restraint is strength. He sees that the same principles that protect his capital also protect his time, his energy, his very sanity. The market's cruelty is a teacher, and those who listen to it walk away stronger, more controlled, more prepared. Those who ignore it are consumed, not just in their accounts, but in their spirit. Yet, for all its cruelty, the reminder is also a gift. It spares no one, but it offers a chance to learn. Each small punishment is an opportunity to correct course before the final blow falls. Each warning loss is a chance to harden discipline before total ruin arrives. The trader who learns from these reminders builds resilience, while the one who dismisses them builds the path to his own destruction. The market gives every man enough chances to respect its laws, but only the wise seize them. The ruthless reminder is eternal. It has been the same across centuries, through panics and bubbles, booms and busts. It was true when the ticker tape first clicked in smoky rooms, and it is true now in the glow of electronic screens. Markets change, technologies evolve, fortunes rise and fall, but the law does not alter. Risk rules are survival. Ignore them, and the market will enforce them in its own way. The enforcement is always harsher, always more unforgiving than anything the trader could have imposed on himself. The final truth of the market's ruthless reminder is this: the market does not care if the trader learns. It is not a teacher by choice, but by nature. It will continue its rhythm regardless of who survives and who perishes. It will punish disobedience without hesitation. It will erase fortunes without remorse, and it will leave the ruins for others to observe. The responsibility lies not with the market, but with the trader. The reminder is always there, waiting, unchanging, a shadow that follows every step. It whispers the same message every day: respect the rules or pay the price. And those who do not listen eventually discover that the whisper becomes a roar, and the roar becomes silence, when there is nothing left to lose.